Imagine strolling with your baby only for a neighbor to block your path and insist you hand her over, words slicing through the quiet suburban street like a slap. Simone Ibarra froze, clutching her newborn tighter against her chest as Patricia Grenville, the self-appointed queen of the neighborhood and president of the homeowners association, planted herself in front of her, sunglasses reflecting Simone's shocked face and lips curling with impatience. "Hand me that baby right now," Patricia demanded, her voice dripping with authority that nobody had granted her, claiming safety and rules as justification. For a moment, Simone's chest tightened, fear tangling with disbelief, until a low voice came from behind her, Adrian Holtby, her husband, tall, broad-shouldered, and calm with the confidence of someone who had faced true danger. "She doesn't need to repeat herself," he said, stepping closer, his presence alone shifting the air. Patricia's eyes flicked to him, a flash of annoyance and miscalculation crossing her face, but Adrian didn't raise his voice or posture aggressively, his quiet, steady tone carried the weight of finality. "No one touches my daughter. Not now. Not ever." The sidewalk suddenly felt like a stage, neighbors peering from windows and front doors, some whispering, some filming, the tension radiating outward. Patricia's audacity wasn't sudden, it was a lifetime cultivated in petty dominion, from fining a retired veteran for planting a tomato garden to ordering a single mother to relocate her daughter's trampoline and scolding an elderly widow over stray cats, but she had never faced anyone who refused to cower, never encountered someone willing to challenge her public performance of control. Simone, exhausted from nights of nursing Ava, felt every nerve on edge, terror and protective instinct battling within her, yet she held the baby tightly, rocking her gently, whispering that everything was okay. Adrian, his gaze sharp but calm, scanned the gathering crowd, noting every whisper, every tilted head, every phone recording the confrontation, understanding that Patricia thrived on the audience, on fear, and that without it, her power was brittle. "I'm not giving you my baby," Simone said firmly, and Patricia huffed, arms crossed, insisting she had every right as HOA president, threatening to call the board or even the police, as if those words could override the natural claim of a mother over her child. Adrian let out a short, incredulous laugh, not mocking but stunned by her nerve. "Call whoever you want, you won't get past me." Around them, the neighborhood stirred, mutters floated from porches, whispers spread through yards, a shared realization dawning that Patricia had crossed a line, that for the first time, someone had refused her performance of entitlement. The baby's sharp cry punctuated the standoff, the sound slicing through the tension like glass breaking, yet Simone whispered softly against her forehead, shielding her from the madness, and Adrian, arm brushing her back, grounded her in the unspoken promise that they were safe together. Patricia, unaccustomed to resistance, tilted her head as if questioning reality. In her mind, she was merely protecting the neighborhood, but her actions had long moved beyond rules, becoming control for control's sake. Adrian's calm, honed by missions in war zones and deserts, read the subtle shifts in posture and tone, sensing entitlement that had no right to reach for a child, while Simone felt a vulnerability she hadn't known until motherhood, raw and terrifying, the moment crystallizing every instinct to protect life that was now literally in her arms. Neighbors across the street peeked from behind curtains, teenagers abandoned skateboards to capture footage, and murmurs of disbelief spread like wildfire. Patricia, for once, was exposed, her authority publicly questioned. The next day, videos circulated online and in neighborhood chats, commentary sharp and unified. "She went too far, that's insane," finally, someone calls her out. Patricia, convinced her authority was unassailable, read each reply like acid burning, each like-minded voice chipping away at the pedestal she had built over decades. At the next HOA meeting, Patricia arrived armed with binders, notes highlighted, a carefully rehearsed script, but when she began to address misinterpretations of her actions, the room erupted in groans and interjections. "You tried to grab a woman's baby, that's not interpretation, that's fact," Mr. Rodriguez shouted. Laughter and murmurs of agreement spread, even the usually quiet Mrs. Lowe spoke sharply, condemning Patricia for humiliating the family and frightening the child. Simone gripped Adrian's hand under the table, pulse racing, heart hammering, and yet relief mingled with fear as neighbors stood up, spoke out, and finally, collectively, refused to obey fear. Adrian spoke calmly, recounting the events, each word measured but piercing, drawing attention to the harassment disguised as authority, reminding everyone that the family had moved to this community for peace and had been threatened in the most intimate, sacred way. Patricia's face flushed, her control evaporating in real time as her once silent audience refused to nod or whisper agreement. She was now the outlier, her authority stripped bare, her entitlement laid open. When the vote to remove her as HOA president passed overwhelmingly, the room erupted into cheers. Patricia stormed out, blinds snapped shut in her house, but the neighborhood's tone had shifted permanently. Doors opened, conversations spilled onto porches and sidewalks, and the fear that had governed behavior for years melted into resolve. Simone, still holding Ava, felt the tension of the ordeal press against her chest, but Adrian's hand on her shoulder grounded her, reminding her that their fight had been more than protection, it had sparked courage in others. Weeks later, Mrs. Lu delivered dumplings as a quiet gesture of solidarity. Dylan and Jay admitted regret over years of passive compliance, and conversations about standing up, dignity, and the subtle but corrosive power of entitlement began to fill the previously tense spaces. Patricia's silence at home, blinds drawn, car idle, and continued plotting aside, could no longer mask the transformation she had triggered. Neighbors now spoke openly, organized collaboratively, and reclaimed their community from fear and control. Simone rocked Ava to sleep at night, haunted by memories of Patricia's outstretched hand but strengthened by Adrian's presence and the newfound solidarity of neighbors who had finally seen that courage spreads faster than fear. Children played freely on sidewalks, block parties returned with laughter and music, and the subtle rules of intimidation that had once ruled the streets dissolved under the weight of collective resolve. The small acts of defiance, the simple refusal to be silenced, the choice to record and share truth, the willingness to confront authority without violence, created ripples, gradually shifting a community that had once hidden behind blinds and fences into a neighborhood of active witnesses and engaged participants. Patricia's obsession had not ended quietly, but her grip on fear and control had fractured, replaced by conversations about mutual respect, shared accountability, and the recognition that entitlement loses power when confronted openly. As they walked the hallways of their home, tired but steadfast, Simone realized that standing up for her daughter had done more than protect her, it had reshaped the world around her, proving that even one resolute voice can challenge entitlement, that silence is not safety, and that dignity, once defended, has a ripple effect far beyond any single confrontation. In the weeks and months that followed, neighborhood meetings became collaborative, block parties and family events flourished, and children grew up in a space where fear no longer dictated behavior, all because a mother refused to yield, a father stood guard, and a community finally realized that entitlement has no power when met with unwavering resolve and courage. The couple would often walk hand in hand along the familiar sidewalks, smiling at families chatting freely on porches, hearing children's laughter echo without fear. Simone, glancing down at Ava sleeping in her arms, understood that courage was contagious, that advocacy for the vulnerable could inspire change, and that the actions of a single family had illuminated the path from fear to empowerment. Even years later, neighbors would recount the story of that standoff, the moment one family refused to yield, reminding all who listened that standing firm with love and integrity can transform not just lives, but entire communities.